but we need to change the paradigm so that we're not living a life that sees everybody in good health while we are driving ourselves into the ground.
Exactly. Welcome to the Burned Out Preacher podcast, where we have frank discussions weekly on ministry struggles and how many of us in the ministry have gone from overwhelmed and exhausted to calm and equipped leaders who love being in ministry. I am your host, Monique Addison-Stinson, burnout prevention coach for ministry leaders. Are you ready to overcome burnout? If your answer is yes, then keep listening. All right, welcome back to the Burned Out Preacher podcast. I am your host, Monique Addison-Stinson, burnout prevention coach for ministry leaders, and I help ministry leaders who are overwhelmed and exhausted become calm and equipped leaders who actually love being in ministry. And we are continuing our series on It Is Time to Talk About Ministry Burnout. And I have had some amazing, amazing guests. And I was just telling today's guest that I initially invited him because his name is Addison.
That's all I needed. Thank
Exactly.
you, Mom.
I was
Thank
like,
you,
you know
Dad.
what? You know what? His name is Addison. He's amazing. Just because his name is Addison. Right. And then I went through his Facebook page and thought, he really would be a good guest on the podcast. So I am going to let him introduce himself.
Well, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you, Sister Monique, Sister Monique Addison. So that's your maiden name, correct?
Yes. Absolutely.
Perfect. That is amazing. That's usually what I hear a lot is Addison is a last name, not necessarily a first name. Right. So I want to say thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad, for naming me and getting me on this podcast. So thank you. You didn't even know what you were doing back then in the 80s. So I truly appreciate it. But yes, my name is Dr. Addison Canidy. I'm a native of Kansas, born and raised. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia after I received my undergraduate degree. I came to the Morehouse School of Religion at the ITC for my master's. And a master's in divinity. And I also went back to get my doctoral degree, my doctorate of ministry. And not too long ago, I started a church by the name of the Promised Land Church. And we are a strictly virtual church right now because we started it in the middle of the pandemic. And things have been so amazing since then. Since we've started, we've had a few spot dates where we had in-person services, but by and large, we've been totally virtual. And God has truly, truly blown my mind at what we've been able to accomplish. Just being virtual, people just staying at home watching us, or even going to their own churches, but still watching us and watching what God is doing in and through us. Right now, we're looking towards possibly getting a building, but we're not rushing it because we want to make sure that I don't burn out. Amen.
Right.
Absolutely.
That is awesome. Absolutely. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I love that. I love that so much. So, we talk about burnout on this podcast. So what is your definition of ministry burnout?
I believe my definition, I was thinking about this when I read your questions that you sent to me beforehand. I think my definition would probably have to be when you don't feel like you have the ability to pray, to fast, to worship, to even be creative in the preaching and studying moments. I know for a good moment there, probably 2020, part of 2019, 2020, I was at a place in my life where I was burnt out because of life. I didn't recognize it then, but in hindsight, I see how burnt out I was because um, there was all of 2020. I did not write not one new sermon. It
Wow.
was that bad. I was just kind of going back, revisiting things that I had already preached
Yeah.
and just preaching that to people, hoping it will resonate with somebody,
Yeah.
because I was so creatively depleted. I could not pull from anywhere. um I didn't want to read my Bible. I didn't want to pray. I wasn't listening to gospel music. It was straight hip hop and R&B.
Right.
you know and I feel like when you lack creativity, and you lack the ability to seek God's face, I think that defines burnout. And it's not necessarily being physically tired. It's as if you are spiritually depleted and exhausted to where you're unable, you don't want to hear from God, right? You know he'll probably tell you something that you might not want to hear, that will make you look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the things that you may need to do, and you're just not at a place to where you can even, I can't even listen to that right now.
Right.
And
Right.
and regardless of how spiritual we may be, all of us have been in a place where it feels like, God, I know you'll have something good for me, to hear from you and all that good stuff. But right now, I just can't hear it.
Right.
I just need to, try to tend to my wounds and try to recover. And I know one of the things that truly helped me was therapy.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
Going to therapy, I'm telling you, I went to a few therapy sessions, and I haven't been back in a little while, in a couple months. But what we spoke about in those 4 sessions have carried me.
Yeah.
um and I'm telling you, I've been sharing it with friends of mine, because I knew at that time, I didn't know it at the time, but I knew I needed something to try to pull me out of the burnout that I was feeling in the moment.
Right. I love everything you just said. I have been there,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when you say you just did not want to talk to God. You like, I know I need to. I know
Right.
you have all the answers, but I can't right now.
Right. Right. Exactly.
You know you are burned out when you can't talk to God.
When you can't even talk to God, you like,
Right.
listen, God, I appreciate you and everything that you want to tell me. But right now, listen, I am, I wasn't expecting to go through all this. You know
Right.
what I mean? I wasn't
Right.
expecting to go through a 2-year
Right.
long pandemic.
Yep.
All the plans that I had for my life have been upended. And I just need some time to recover
Yeah.
from the trauma that I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you recognize, your fragility, and you recognize your own pain and trauma, and your own problems, even if it's something that you've done or something someone's done to you, and all of it happens all at once, all the consequences, good or bad, happen at one time. It's a lot to
It's a
handle.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot to handle. And not only that, when you just, not only the pandemic, but the things with George Floyd happening, where every time you look at the
Yes.
internet,
Yep.
and you don't even know how to respond to that, because you want to be encouraging to other people. However, it's hard to encourage other people when you need a level of
Yeah.
encouragement as well, and you're not encouraged, right?
Right.
Exactly,
Right.
like what you're saying. Like, things were looking grim, and I was full of cynicism and
Yeah.
pessimism,
Right.
especially when, I'm in the house with all 3 of my children. One of them was a baby, and my
Oh,
wife, and we're all, trying to
yeah.
figure this whole thing out.
Right.
And every time you want to try to escape, and you get hit with another problem or another issue, And that stuff can burn you out. That's why I was telling my church last Wednesday, you have to put peace on your calendar. And you have to allow yourself, give yourself room to have peace. That means you have to schedule when you will
Yeah,
not
you
get
got
on
to be
social media.
intentional.
Right. You got to
Absolutely.
be intentional about it. You have to schedule when I'm not going to listen to the radio. I'm just going to
Yep.
drive, listen to absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Just be just be lost in my thoughts and try to hear from God, try to listen to myself, listen to my body, listen to my mind,
Yeah.
and figure things out as you go.
Yeah.
Because if you don't put peace on your calendar, chaos will have its way with you.
Mm, mm. That is so true. I'm happy you brought brought out the George Floyd murder,
Yes.
and that we all witnessed,
Yes.
unfortunately. And during that time, I had to take a break from human resources, but I have worked in human resources for many years. My undergrad is in human resources management. And I remember telling my supervisor at that time, it was during the pandemic, as you mentioned, and it was like we were just watching various lynchings. It was crazy.
Mm.
And of course, in human resources, you gotta be there for everybody, just like preachers. You gotta
Right.
be there for
Right.
everybody. Everyone comes to you. Everyone's venting to you about everything. And I told her, I said, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I am overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We are pretending like this is not happening in
Yeah.
our nation right now. And you guys are asking us to keep working and being there and do these trainings. And I physically cannot. I can't. And it
Right.
actually started this conversation. They finally reached out to us and asked us how we were doing, because no one was doing that. And I feel like that happens with pastors a lot.
I
Everyone
agree.
is constantly, I don't say dumping on pastors because that's not a good word, but constantly sharing what they are struggling with pastors, and then leave.
Right.
And you expect the
Right.
pastors, they're left with all this stuff.
Right, right. I'm so happy you said that. There was an illustration that I received maybe a couple of years ago. I was driving and I saw this dumpster truck driving. It looked pretty empty, but it was a dumpster
Right.
truck nonetheless. And as it was driving, I kept on seeing it pass by all of these full trash cans, right? And all of these full trash cans weren't being picked up. Now, in the moment, I was like, why isn't this,
Right. Right.
dumpster truck picking up this trash, picking up the dumpster? And
Yeah.
I recognized, one, because it wasn't supposed to pick up that trash. And just because it's capable of taking on trash doesn't mean it has to, right?
Ooh.
Just because you can dump all of your trash in me, dump all of your garbage in me,
Right.
all of your trauma in me, doesn't mean I have to take
I
it
have
every
to.
single day, right? You're not on my route to where I'm going.
Right.
I'm not scheduled to pick you up, pick up all of your dumpster and all of your trash today.
Ooh.
You got to give me another day.
Right.
Maybe I'm gonna come back around and get to you later. But
Exactly.
there's some stuff that I just can't take on.
Yeah.
Because if I take on your trash and your trauma and your problems, I'm not going to be left for any room for myself, and
Right.
to having to manage the struggles of my children and my wife.
Right.
And those are people I can't say no to, right? I am obligated to say yes every single time they need to speak to me about something. They need to share with me. They need to vent.
Yeah.
I have to address them.
Absolutely.
So when I have an option to address other people's trauma and problems and venting and issues, I'm going to have to reflect or make an account for what is it that I have to deal with within my own self? Can I handle other people's stuff right now?
Right.
Can I handle other people's trash right now? If I can't, I have to say, okay, give me a moment. Let me get back with you, say tomorrow or the next week. Give me some time, and then we can address, so I can work myself up to be able to manage or to give spiritual advisement to other people's issues when it is that I still have to deal with my own. Because if I'm not totally prepared to handle other people's wounds when I'm still dealing with mine. There was a wise preacher that told me, Pastor Reginald Sharp, when I was going through a really, really tough time in my life. He was like, man, be careful, because you never want to bleed on people who did not cut you.
Ooh.
You don't want to bleed on people who did not cut you. So now I have to be aware of my own shortcomings, so that I'm not going into new conversations, new relationships, hurting other people because of the trauma that I've dealt with.
So true. So true. And I love the dump truck analogy as well, because that is so true. I feel like a lot of pastors, especially when I was super, super active in the ministry. And you don't know this, but I am in the AME church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Grew up in the AME church, and I was a part of the ministerial track. So back then, this was back in my late 20s. I'm 50 now. But back then, when I was on the ministerial track, the AME church, at least in my district, if you express that you were called to be in the ministry, they immediately put you on a pastoral track. And I was like, I was not called to be a pastor.
Right.
That wasn't my calling.
Right.
But I was on that track. And so I was going to we had a ministerial institute. And I eventually got out of that because, again, I wasn't called to be a pastor. And so they didn't really know how to use me, which is fine. I remember going through that institute, and at the time I was going to church literally, and did this for years, literally 5 to 6 days out of the week, I was in church doing something. I was in all these different things, and it was just craziness. And I remember the pastors that I was friends with, I can see that they were overwhelmed and they were spent. And if it was like that, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it, but it was as if, kind of like you just mentioned this, kind of like they were bleeding on people and they hadn't addressed what they were really dealing with. And I could see it, they couldn't see it, but I can actually see that. And I started hearing and seeing these pastors who had entered the ministry years ago. The longer they've been in ministry, the worse their health became. And no one would address it.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, well, maybe they don't understand what burnout actually is and what stress can do to their physical body.
Right.
And that's when God said, you need to do this. This is your ministry. Burnout prevention is your ministry for pastors and ministry leaders. And that's when I eventually started. I ran. First of all, I was like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
But I eventually accepted what I was supposed to do. Yeah. But one of the things that really struck me was that pastors didn't know what burnout was and what they were dealing with and what the stress was doing to their body. And so I'm very happy that you mentioned a lot of things that you were experiencing while you felt like you were dealing with burnout. What are some other physical things you felt like you were dealing with during this time, as you look back on it and you're like, you know what, I was in burnout? What are some physical things you were dealing with?
And this is so important and really practical. I appreciate you asking this question because it's important to know at least what burnout looks like when people wear it, right? Because oftentimes burnout is not called burnout, it's called hustle and grinding.
Right.
And you know what I mean? I'm going and going, and it's been celebrated year after year. And physically for me, I wasn't working out. I was eating anything that I could that was unhealthy. I just got back in the gym maybe a few months ago.
I hear you.
And I would run occasionally, maybe once or twice a week, but that was more so to relieve the anguish and stress that I was actually going through. So that was my excuse. I'm running, I can run 3 miles a day, but then I go eat a pint of ice cream, right? You know what I mean? So, you know, I was like, I'm gonna go do this little workout, but when I'm done working out, I'm going to eat horribly. And then also, in how I treated my family. Being transparent, I was short-tempered. I didn't have a whole lot of patience. And this this kind of goes back to the analogy, don't bleed on people who didn't cut you. It's oftentimes that we give everyone outside of our immediate family our best and give our families our worst. They have to struggle or reconcile the duality of who we are as preachers and pastors and just ministry leaders, because when we are in front of the camera or we're in front of a congregation, we have to be on every single time, and we have to be kind, we have to be, you know, observant and on, you know, on our best, on our A game every single time. But when we come down off of that, oftentimes our family is the target of all of our frustration. And that really,
so true.
When I saw it, that really disturbed me because I thought I didn't see it initially. My wife had to kind of tell me, hey, you might need to go to therapy. There was a time I think one of my children had dropped like I think a cup or something, a glass cup, but it didn't break. And I picked it up because I was frustrated because milk was everywhere. And I picked it up and I was frustrated, and I threw it into the sink and it shattered, went everywhere. And that's just transparently, you know, confession is good for the soul, bad for the reputation. So this is me being real. Looking back on it, that's when I recognize, okay, I need some help, because what I'm going through, the stress and the trauma and the burnout that I'm feeling, is becoming unbearable for me and unbearable for my family. Because even though my children see it, they may be scared to say it, right? And
thank God for your wife.
Thank God for my wife. I thank God for my wife, because she gently restored me, and told me, hey, let's calm down, because I was trying to figure out, okay, I need to get back. I thought my way out of how I was feeling was to keep going in ministry. I need another preaching engagement. I need another this. I need to travel more. I need to get this stuff together. I need to do this Bible study, and I need to, all that type of stuff. And I recognize, and this is something I told my church last week. The title of our Bible study was called God Wants to Know. Because sometimes we celebrate when God wants a yes, but sometimes God wants also a no from you. And Jesus shows us this in our text, because there was a time where when people desired him, wanted him, needed him, he went to a place all by himself to pray.
Exactly.
Which tells us sometimes God wants a no. The reason why God wants a no sometimes is because oftentimes our yes will never be enough. I don't care how many times you tell people yes. I don't care how many times you agree to do this. It will never be enough for people. It will never be enough.
That is so
true. You will drive yourself into the ground if you feel like I have to say yes to this, I have to say yes to that. And that's why a whole lot of pastors are in bad health. Because they say yes to every preaching engagement. They say yes to every hospital visit. They say yes to every funeral. They say yes to every, sick and shut in care. And I get that's the duty of the pastor, but we need to change the paradigm so that we're not living a life that sees everybody in good health while we are driving ourselves into the ground.
Exactly.
That is so crazy when my job is to see everybody else do well but me.
Right.
It's to care for everybody else.
Exactly.
But for myself.
Exactly.
And it's celebrated, and then it's shouted about at your funeral, right? You know what I mean? He helped me when I was down, and you know what I mean? Right. He didn't care about himself, and we know because he or she is dead right now. We see that
clearly.
It's good. That is evident. They didn't care about. They would give you their last dime and give you the food off their table. Yep. Clearly, that makes sense. That checks out.
Yep.
That checks out.
Mystery solved. Now we know why they died.
And so, I'm now that I see, I pray I never have to go through that again. But now that I see the effects, possibly now I can recognize it within myself, because oftentimes we are the last, when it comes to self, we are the last person to see how bad off we are. Like everybody else sees it.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like you're the last. I remember TD Jake said, he was sitting down with another pastor, and he says, it's funny how I'm up here on stage and everybody can see me but me.
Right.
Everybody else can see me, but I'm the only one that can't see myself. And that's how it's been. We are the last to know we're in bad health. We are the last to know that we need to change what we're doing and adjust and adapt. And I think this pandemic has helped people a lot to see that we can still be effective and still care about our well-being. Like we ain't got to be at the church every single day. When we couldn't go to the church.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You're able to see, like, when we couldn't go to the church, you're like, wait a minute, giving has stayed the same, or we're doing better than what we were when we was all coming to the church.
Absolutely.
So that means I don't have to be inside the church house every single day of my life.
Absolutely. I remember saying years ago on Facebook, I did a Facebook post. This was years ago. And someone was, how people just start arguing with you, right? When they disagree, instead of scrolling by, they got to argue.
Right.
And so I posted something about, and this is my revelation about burnout in the church and all that. And I was like, man, I just, I was convicted basically in that I don't have to be like me being at church. Am I really doing what God wants me to do at church every single day? Was I really doing what God wanted me to do, or was I seeking approval from other people?
Wow.
If I'm too sick and tired, but yet I'm still doing, just because I'm doing something in church, is that really what God asked me to do? Like, am I really doing the thing that God wanted me to do? And this person was so offended because they're at church all the time. And I shouldn't say this. I'm going to say it. You were transparent. I'm going to be transparent. Okay. I honestly believe that a lot of people, a lot of church people, use church as a drug. I feel like they're going to get their hit, shout, dance. Not everybody, but some people use it as a drug to get their hit, and then they go back to whatever life they have.
Sure. I agree. I agree that there's a lot of people who will go to church to get what they need, but what they need is not used outside of the church.
Yeah.
And exactly. That's why, the church house in many people's estimation is a drug, because you go there to get your hit. You come out acting the same way you did before you went in.
Right.
And you know what I mean? And so where is, the effects of the church display that in your life, in your actions, and how you treat others, and what you do, and how you treat your coworkers, your friends, your family, so on and so forth. And I think it's important that when you go to church or when you go to Bible study, you're not there for the approval of other people, or because oftentimes, similar to what you're saying, people go to church in order to seek approval and celebration, right?
Right.
Sometimes they want to go to be seen in order to show this person is faithful, this person is dedicated, hopefully they'll give me a preaching engagement, or hopefully I'll get an opportunity, so on and so forth. But when you are secure in yourself, when you know that you are enough just because you woke up this morning,
Amen.
You don't have to go to church in order. That's why I'm telling folks, sometimes God wants a no. You don't have to say, okay, I'm going to church in order for somebody to see me. And I'm gonna tell people, man, I've been out of town. I've been running and gunning all week long, and I'm here at church. And you like, what is the purpose of you telling other people that? Oftentimes it's because you want to be celebrated. You want somebody to know that you are, you want somebody to have this idealistic image of you in their mind. And you want to create the narrative of yourself. And really all that means is you don't feel like, or your view of yourself is enough for you. You need other people to think the same way you do about you. and listen, y'all, how people feel about you is fleeting. They will love you one moment and hate you the next, based off of nothing you do.
Exactly.
So please, brother, sister, live your life.
Live your life.
Right, king, queen. Of course, living according to what God wants you to do. But don't be out here seeking the approval of people that may or may not like you.
Absolutely. and like you mentioned earlier, you need to be there for your family. That should be you. That should be whose thoughts and ideas and expectations, your family should be important to you. You should think based on that.
that is so important, because as pastors and leaders, people will celebrate you when you neglect your family for the sake of the church.
Yes.
People will celebrate you, but as
Crazy.
soon as you get a divorce or your children are out there acting a fool,
Right.
they will criticize you for
Exactly.
the same thing they were celebrating you for.
Thank you. Thank you.
So please make sure. And I told my church, and I've told quite a few people this. I'm not going to sacrifice my family on the altar of the church, because I heard Pastor Faison say this. We were at an installation for a friend of ours, a mutual friend, and he was saying, um, don't die for the church. Jesus already did that.
Exactly.
The church is the bride of Christ, not your bride.
Not you.
Right? Not you. You're because at some point
I love
we are celebrating infidelity, spiritual infidelity. Right? You know what I mean? You're out here cheating on your family with Christ's bride.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
love that.
that
is so true.
You can't be doing that. You can't cheat on your family for somebody else's bride. And
So true.
I am determined. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I'm determined to be to my family what they need me to be,
Yeah.
what I have to be, and what God wants me to be.
I love that.
That's really what I'm attempting to do.
Good.
I may not get it all together. I may not have it all together every single time, but just know I am definitely striving towards that particular mark. And that is always present on my mind.
Good.
Being the father I'm supposed to be to my children and the husband I'm supposed to be to my wife.
Good. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I am so happy you brought that out, because so many pastors need to hear that.
And listen, I'm speaking, from a place of preventative measures. I'm trying to prevent this. It's not that I got it figured out.
Right.
I'm just attempting to produce a family that loves God.
Yeah.
And that is something that God and I can be proud of. I can, that's what I'm attempting to do. It may not work, but I'm not going to be accused of not trying. That's what I'm not going to be accused of. And so I ain't got all the answers. I said that to say I ain't got all the answers,
right?
Because I don't want people to feel like I'm out here just giving all these antidotes and I got it all figured out, because I don't.
Right.
But
nobody does.
Yeah, nobody does. But I am, trying to actively be who God has created. I remember, and I'll share this story. I remember, my youngest daughter was just born. And I was working at a particular church. I remember there was someone that said to me in a text message, "You need to stop babysitting your children." And that really bothered me to my core, because the father, knowing what I've gone through with my, father relationships, my biological father and my stepfather, both great men. I love them, but they weren't perfect in my life. And I'm trying to right the wrongs that I've had to go through. They're wonderful men. Right. I love them, but I recognize what I was lacking in my life.
Exactly.
And so I'm trying to fill those voids, right, so that my children don't have to deal with what I've had to go, as every parent should do.
Absolutely.
And so to be you know, accused of saying, or accused of quote unquote babysitting. I'm not babysitting my children. I
Right.
parent my children.
Exactly.
Right. I parent my children. I'm there for my children. And I'm not going to, be derelict in my duties as a parent just so I could look good for other people that
Right.
aren't in my household. Right.
Come on now.
And so,
Mm.
I want people to know, live your life, love your family, and then the church, give what you can to your church,
Right. Absolutely.
so that you're not out here being derelict in your duty
Absolutely.
as a parent. So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. I may need to have your wife on to talk.
oh, she don't like talking, but I think
You
she'll
know,
talk to you. I think she
honestly,
don't like public speaking, but I think she'll
listen,
do it. I think
I
she'll
don't
do
either actually. But
it.
a friend of mine, she was actually my first podcast guest, and she and her husband are both in the ministry. And we were talking. I said, we should probably talk to some first ladies just to hear their perspective as
Sure,
well. And so
sure.
I may reach back out to you to talk to your wife,
Let's do it. Let's do
because
it.
yeah, that would be awesome to bring her on to hear a first lady's perspective. But I really want to also talk about, where are you now? Do you feel like you recovered? Because you did mention that you're doing some preventative things to
Mhm.
prevent going in or dealing with burnout. And those who are just listening, this is your first time listening to the podcast. Burnout in its simplest form or simplest explanation is stress that hasn't been managed.
Mm,
And so, what are you doing on a daily basis to prevent having a burnout episode again?
sure. One of the I'll give you a couple.
Okay.
So one, I'm working out. I just got back home from the gym. That is, a consistent place where I can really work out some frustrations and stress, um, and kind of refocus myself. Um, the second one is running. I got to be honest with you, when I'm struggling with a sermon or struggling with how to gain a perspective on a particular text that I'm wrestling with, when I go run, I'll do a whole lot of reading, I'll do a whole lot of writing. And usually, if it's still not clicking and it's still not, ready for me to share with other people, one of the ways that I really, am able, when things just click for me, is by running. I don't know what it is
Really?
about running, but running for me, I'm telling you,
Wow.
I hear from God. It's almost an automatic thing. Like I know I can get something good, an illustration or a good perspective or an idea that I was neglecting.
Okay.
Usually when I'm running, that's not the same for everybody, but for
Right.
me
Right.
personally,
Gotcha.
I get some good things from running. So I said working out, running. Um, I golf a lot, and I probably I want to golf more than even I do. I golf, and I have one of my best friends. We go out and play golf with each other, and sometimes we just talk about a whole lot of nothing. Sometimes it's more serious,
Yeah.
but I like to be out there in nature and chase that little white ball around. And it's really cathartic and peaceful to me. But then also being with my children, usually they pull me out of a lot of
Good.
stressful moments. Like
Good.
those, I have three little girls. I have three little girls.
Bless
Yeah, that
you.
I am blessed. I am a blessed man. I have three daughters, and 7, 4, and 2.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so, my youngest, all she's ever known is pretty much a pandemic, right?
Right. Right.
She wasn't in school long before we had to pull her out because of the
Yeah.
pandemic and everything. But they have just a unique ability, and as I'm sure with everybody's children, to pull you out of a lot of stress and just the issues of the day
Yeah.
that may bog you down. They
Right.
really have that ability. And being with my wife, being around her,
Good.
listening to what she may be going through at the job, or how she may be feeling, and just what makes her excited, is really, really helpful.
I
And
love
then
that.
lastly, taking moments, I think, to do something you love, do something that is non-ministry related,
Yes.
whatever that may be, whatever that may be, as long as it's not toxic or unhealthy. I think it's really important to do something that
Yeah.
takes you away from ministry.
Absolutely.
There are some things in ministry that energizes me, like giving people
Yep.
things randomly,
Yeah.
fulfilling needs. We just for Mother's Day, me and my wife and my children, we went out to eat at this restaurant, and in my mind, I prayed. I was like, God, send me some, whoever I'm supposed to bless.
Mhm.
And it wasn't even our waitress. It was just a person that was a waitress who was working. She was a mother who was working on Mother's Day.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I believe that's exactly who I've prayed for.
Yeah.
And I asked her, is she a mother? She said, yeah, and all that type of stuff. She said, Mother's Day is kind of tough for me because my mother passed away. And so I want to
Yeah.
just kind of be busy. And we tipped her. She wasn't even our server. We tipped
Oh,
her
wow.
$500
Oh, that's
just because
awesome.
our church did that. Our church did that.
Yeah.
And, we're in the middle of this giving campaign, and we're kind of, acting out our faith, and
I love that.
telling people it's good to give before we even see a dime of what we're asking for.
Absolutely.
And so we said, we're going to tithe off of what we ask for before we ever see it.
I
And
love
so we're asking 300 people to give $100,
I
which
love
equals out to be, $30,000.
yeah.
And so we're tithing 3,000 before we see a dime. And so we got $2,500 left, and we're just going to be trying to bless people and help people.
Love it.
Just that type of stuff energizes me.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Even more than getting a good revelation, a good illustration, a good preaching moment, singing, all that type of stuff. When I'm able to actually do what God desires of
Yeah.
me, instead of just telling other people it's better to give than it is to receive. Give and it shall be given unto you, pressed
Right.
down, shaken together, running over, all that type of stuff. That's cool to tell everybody else, but
Right.
when you're actually able to work it out and do it, that truly energizes me. So those are just a few things that truly kind of pull me out of the feeling of being burnt out.
Sorry about that. I saw my male woman walk to the door. I was like, oh man, she's gonna ring the doorbell.
I get you. I understand.
But I am so happy you said, oh, I love that your church is doing that. I have said often, like, well, church is tithe. We're
Right.
always
Right.
telling the members to tithe. Why won't the churches tithe? So I'm
Yeah.
so happy to hear that. And you mentioned several things that I have been encouraging my clients to do, and that is something that's not ministry related.
Yeah.
Just get your mind off of it. You mentioned running and exercising and golfing, spending time with your family. Those are exactly what I encourage my clients to do. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm also encouraging, and we haven't talked about this today, and I think we got a few more minutes, but I'm also encouraging my pastors. I feel like a lot of pastors try to do everything. everything. Like they don't have an assistant, and
Yeah.
if they do have an assistant, they're still trying to do everything. They don't
Right.
plan out their day. They don't do any of that stuff. How are you looking on that front? Do you have help in the ministry?
So I don't, being a new ministry, I don't have all the help that I need and desire. I'm still doing a lot of stuff by myself.
Gotcha.
There are times where I'm able to kind of pull on other people. I'm trying to not take up as big of a footprint in people's lives, because I want to be considerate of other people, but also have to be considerate of myself and everything like that. So there's some things that I've delegated out to other people, and eventually we're growing to a place to where I'm able to kind of distribute out duties and responsibilities so that I can kind of focus on big picture things. But I'm not there yet. If you can, please pray that we get there. I need all hands on deck as far as prayer goes.
Absolutely.
So there are some things that I can depend on other people for. Other things I just would feel a little bit more comfortable if I do it. There was a couple of things when we first started our church, our first Sunday airing, like a lot of stuff that could go wrong did go wrong. And I was like, okay, well, I see that I am going to have to take this over. And so I appreciate your willingness, but I'm gonna go ahead and do this one. And until we get there, I will, some things I just will probably have to take over and do myself, which isn't too much of an issue right now.
Gotcha.
I think when things really start getting busy and everything like that, then I'll probably start reaching out to volunteers to help in certain areas, and someone that is dependable enough to just do it and that can answer questions on their own and kind of use deductive reasoning and, common sense, so on and so forth. And once I find a person that can, do that, I will definitely be asking them to come alongside me and make this thing happen. So I don't have it quite figured out yet, but I'm definitely praying that we can figure this out soon. So I'm not having to give it to somebody and take it back away. And because oftentimes I think I saw somebody say this, I can't remember who, so I can't say it was me. Oftentimes when we overwork ourselves, the response of I will do it myself is usually a trauma response or a disappointment response. We'll just say I'll do it myself because you don't want to be disappointed and you don't want to, give it to somebody and it not work out the way that you see it in your mind. And that's something that I think everybody has to pray to recover from, especially myself. And so, that's kind of where I am now.
That spirit of, if I want something done right, I gotta do it myself.
Exactly. And that will cause a lot of burnout. That will cause a lot of burnout. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're even thinking about the future, because you said your church is what, 2 years old?
No, we're not even a year old yet. So we will be a year old. We started our Bible study in August of 2021. And we started airing our services in October of 2021. So I think our anniversary will probably have to be either in August or October. I think it'll more than likely be October.
Nice. That's nice. Well, so you're not there yet, but at least start thinking about it now, because as you grow, you're gonna need some help. You can hopefully have somebody grow with you. So, and even if you don't have anyone in your congregation right now, consider virtual assistants. Consider virtual assistants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I just saw something like advertising about a virtual assistant. Wow.
Yeah, definitely consider virtual assistants. There's an organization that they're called Ministry Architects. And so look at them. They have a history of working with pastors and different ministry leaders. They understand church. All of them are Christians, they could definitely help them out. So think about them as well. Reach out to them and or let me know. I can give you their information. But yeah, just start. If you are busy, you can definitely have an assistant help you with a lot of the administrative tasks, even email management, calendar management, things like that. You can let someone else handle them while you're focusing on kingdom building.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
No
that. That's definitely something I'm gonna have to look into.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're actually right at time, so I do want to wrap it up. I have enjoyed this so much. I may have to have you back on. I feel like I want to talk to your wife to get a first lady perspective as well. So I'll be reaching out to you about that.
Perfect.
She would come on.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome. But are you on, I know you're on Facebook, but is your profile public? Are you on Instagram? Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yes, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. My name on all of them is at Addison Canidy, AddisonCanidy. You can look me up on all of those social media. I'm on TikTok, but we're not really on TikTok. That's it's not quite my speed. It's really performative. So I'm not, it's hard for me to gear up to do all that stuff. And so I'm still trying to get all that type of stuff figured out. But like I said, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you can reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. My church is on Instagram and Facebook, The Land ATL. You can look us up. We are the Promised Land Church. ATL on Facebook, The Land ATL on Instagram. Please reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. You ain't to come to one of our services. You can stay in your bed. All you got to do is just turn on YouTube right now. So it's amazing to be able to be convenient for everybody to be a part. So yeah, please do that.
I will. So I will make sure I add all of those links. So everyone can find you. It's so funny you mentioned, because I have I think I started a TikTok page, or I don't even know what it's called. And I just can't. And I'm actually considering doing more, I guess, on TikTok, because Instagram is going through, I don't know if you noticed, I don't know how often you're on Instagram, but Instagram is actually changing their algorithm. So, and Facebook as well. I know they're under the same company now, but it's hard to get people to see your post now because they're changing their algorithm. And I am like, I can't.
I am struggling.
Me too.
To be seen on Instagram. And like we're doing this whole campaign. We just posted yesterday, and I just knew it was going to get a lot of traction. And it's been a struggle. Just the and I'm like, man, listen, y'all want people on your platform, but we're just trying to do the best we can.
I know.
And it's not like I'm asking you to show me the people that don't follow me. I just show me to the people that follow me. That's all I'm asking. You ain't got to do too much else than that. Just show me to the people. You ain't got to spread it all throughout the country. Just show it to the people that follow me, and I will be okay.
Exactly, but they're not doing that.
Yeah, they're not doing it. And I am struggling with all of it. So please know how you feel is the same exact way I'm feeling. And
it's hard out here in these social media streets.
It is. I'm telling you, especially when you're a virtual church, you're trying to get traction and everything like that, and trying to be seen by more and more people.
I know. And did you do a paid ad? Did you do?
I have not done a paid ad. I'm trying to prevent from doing it, but it's almost as if you have to in order to be
Yep.
seen by the people that actually follow you.
Yep.
And that, I think that's the reason why they're changing their algorithm. So, we're not going to let you
Right,
be
be on
seen
here
by
for
your
free.
followers, right? If you're not paying for it. Now, if you pay for it, we'll show you to everybody.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. Yeah.
which,
I'm really frustrated. And so I thought about TikTok and I was like, I'm an introvert by heart, and I just don't want to do all that. I don't want to be dancing and pointing and
right. Dude, I don't want to do it neither. I ain't mad at you.
But I'm really reconsidering.
That is so funny. I don't want to be doing that. And I think you say you're an introvert. My wife could probably say more than me, but I have introverted tendencies. Like, I'm a people person. I can talk to anybody for however long, but
it needs
usually, right. Usually I want to be at the house just chilling. Like,
you're an introvert.
Right.
You're an introvert.
I'm like, you can invite me. I want to be invited, but I may not want to show up. Right. So I have those.
Yes, sir. You're an introvert. That's the telltale sign of an introvert. You need to be alone. You crave your aloneness. I can talk to people. I love talking to people. I love people.
Yeah.
But not all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. I feel like this is a new development within me too, because I'm usually like, the really, extroverted person that doesn't mind being around. And I still don't mind it. I just also enjoy my alone time.
Yep,
so,
you're an introvert. And it's so funny. People meet me and they assume I'm an extrovert. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't like small talk, which was one of the reasons why I didn't want to do this podcast, because I'm like, I don't want to talk to people.
Sure.
But I have enjoyed it so much. I've enjoyed every guest. I've enjoyed the conversation. But then when I'm done, I'm like, oh, I need to go.
Yeah, I'm not mad at you, but you're doing a phenomenal job. I truly appreciate. This was one of my favorite interviews that I've had. So you're doing a phenomenal job, despite your introverted tendencies. Yeah. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for agreeing to come on. We did not know each other prior to this. Is our first time actually seeing, quote unquote, seeing each other. We've been Facebook friends. I think I think I requested to be friends with you. I can't remember, but very grateful that you did. Again, like I said, I saw Addison, so I was like, oh.
And usually if somebody by the name Addison reaches out to me, I'm usually going to accept them.
Right?
I don't accept everybody.
Exactly.
But if your name matches mine, I'm like, oh, another Addison.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But again, thank you so much for being on. I will make sure that I put all the links where everyone can reach you and your church. I will add that to our description as well. This will be on YouTube as well as on wherever you get your podcast. So I will make sure you see that. But again, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. All right.